I got you. Welcome to the lesson. Please take a seat wherever's comfy. I'm going to do roll call real quick. If you want to call the meeting to order, and then I'll grab you your pen, Reverend. Okay. Can you call this meeting to order, Tina?
Yes. Thank you all for coming. I am Councilwoman Middleton, chairperson of MPA, and I call this meeting to order.
Beautiful. Chair Middleton.
I'm present.
Councilmember Matavetsky, Councilmember Rathmel, and thank you to all of our other guests for joining us. I'll be right back.
I guess we can start. Do you want to wait for your pen or?
Oh, I can.
I'm
ready.
Okay, so thank you all for coming to this meeting. This is just basically a continuation of the town hall that we had, and just kind of figure out some next steps regarding the naming. But also, while we're here, I won't be able to, I'm not sure how long this meeting is going to be, but you guys can continue to have the conversation because I have to pick up my daughter at a certain time. Hard stop for me. But I want to talk about renaming, but also just kind of a piece at the town hall that Amy Rice was here kind of said a community to collaboration too, because we want to make sure that we're taking care of the community too. The name is a name, and it has a lot of meaning and sentiment value to it. But the main thing is I kind of want to see what efforts going forward can we do to kind of lift up that area too, and some thoughts to have the community conversation also. So
could I have a quick intro question?
Sure.
I would like to share, but also I'm curious just how folks feel the town hall conversation went.
Absolutely.
And since I'm throwing it out, I'll just briefly say I was really grateful for the attendance. It was one of our better attended town halls. So the engagement, which was the point, to have the community conversation, that I was pleased with. Aside from one or two individuals, I don't think, yes, there were disagreement or differing opinions shared, but I wouldn't, I don't think it was contentious. I think it was communicative. I think it was an honest discussion, and that can also be difficult to get in a community setting too, so I appreciated that. And the kind of overarching theme that came through for me was a desire to have a unified approach, and then the way that you wrapped it up with just this call to prioritize investment in the community was my kind of where my takeaway is.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that those are the same sentiments. I think that's basically the last part kind of stuck in my head is kind of what we need to focus on our goals regarding the downtown area, inner city area. But also with the name, it brought a different perspective. I think sometimes when you hear things or you want things done, you don't understand the meaning of what it has. And what I took away from it is that yes, it is Christopher Columbus, the park, but to a lot of people there, it meant a lot to them. They, with that name, and even though they weren't comfortable with the name, they felt a lot of sentiment. It was a park for them. They did so much there. They grew up there. They had different memories at that park with the name Columbus. So that's kind of what I got out, just a different perspective on how people feel. And even though to certain people or to a certain demographic, it might not, it may feel a way to another demographic. People respect and love Christopher Columbus. So.
I'll go next. So yes, similar to some of the sentiments that have already been shared, I do feel that this was a cordial meeting that people were able to express how they felt and also feel that they have been heard. I think that aside from the 2-3 minutes of the back and forth, for the most part, the meeting was really an open dialogue where people had opportunity to say what was on their heart, say their connection to the area, but also have a crowd that will listen and be able to understand how people feel. And even after the event, I was able to have personal conversations with individuals, and they said hey, yeah, I didn't realize that, such and such also played over here, or, oh, I didn't realize that, this also was, germane to this area. So it was an eye-opening experience for a lot of people in the room, because what I've come to know, especially as a pastor, is that when people don't talk to each other, there's a lot of information that goes lacking. And so I feel like at the end of the day, that was an opportunity for us to come together, for people to hear each other, but also to understand that we have more in common than differences. And so from this meeting, as I'm kind of branching out to what was originally stated as far as the desire for this meeting, is that I hope that we are able to come to a path forward together, because it's a culturally rich area. It's city center, and there are so many communities that have either called that area home or had some type of attachment to that area. And I think that it's important for us to see how we can incorporate all that diversity and move forward together, because it really has an opportunity to be a tourism spot for the city if we play it right. So I just hope that from this meeting, we're able to leave with something that where we can say, hey, we came together, we've heard each other, and now let's move forward together.
No, I kind of agree with everything that's been said so far. I think that the meeting was an opportunity for everyone to have an opportunity to say what they thought. And I think everyone, for the most part, was respected when they spoke. The audience was pretty respectful to differences of opinion. I know some people came in concerned that a decision had already been made. I know that came up near the end. And I think that people felt comfortable that when they realized that a decision has not been made. Right. Because I think some people thought it was just a pro forma meeting. We're going to hear this and then we're going to go vote tomorrow. Okay. So it was good that, it was emphasized that no decision had been made yet. So I think a lot of people took that away with them. So, so I think the fact that, people did have an opportunity to express their opinion, and which was nice, is that council members got a sense to hear, a lot of the sentiment that goes from families that grew up there and still have some relatives there, but the immigrant experience that came through there at the beginning of the century through like 1950, that kind of perspective was put out there, which I think was great for all of us, and especially for city council members who might not have been aware of it. And on the other side of the equation, what you're talking about, I think that obviously, I think all of us agree that, that's one of the city's older neighborhoods. It's probably one of the neighborhoods that needs some R&R. And, there's an old sentiment like a chain is only strong as its weakest link. So when you upgrade some of your more challenged neighborhoods, you really upgrade the whole city. And so, and you know what, even though it's still center city, for our center city, we're still pretty dynamic compared to a lot of other center cities. So there's potential there because there's still a lot of activity there. The fact that the incubator was built there, you still have a stadium a couple blocks away. Those kind of anchors are really valuable for an inner city neighborhood. So I think there is a lot of potential to build on that and strengthen the neighborhood. So I think everybody would be willing to work on that. I think it'd be a nice idea, and that would enrich the whole city.
I thought the town hall was amazing. I walked in not knowing what to expect, and just the turnout in and of itself was awesome. I liked the diversity that was there. It's given me, like, after that town hall, I really had a chance to sit down and reflect my experience in that neighborhood and how it included so many people. I'm going to tell you all the story I had, and hopefully this will exemplify what I want to say. When I was a little girl, I remember a day I was walking down the street, and down Loud Street, they had a lot of Italians lived there, and a lot of vineyards, a lot of great vineyards, right? So one day I get the bright idea to pick me some grapes as I walk down the street. And the gentleman, the older gentleman who owned the house, who came out and he was yelling at me, and he said, "Don't you touch my grapes, don't you touch my grapes, I'm telling your father." As soon as he said that, I knew I was in big trouble. If my father knew I touched somebody else's property without permission, I would have been in trouble, right? Every day I'm waiting for him to tell my father. He never told my father, right? Before the week's in, he invited me in. He said, pick all the grapes you want, right? Went in the house and got a bag from me to get as much as I could. And I was so confused, and I'm picking the grapes, and I'm thinking, oh, he didn't tell my dad yet, and now I can pick grapes. That was the community that I grew up in. He taught me a lesson. He solidified a lesson that my father already taught me. We worked together. We were all one community. He respected my father. He knew I knew better, and my father respected him. That's what I want to see there. Again, what we call the park, whatever we call the park. But I want us to have a thriving community as we did back then. Helping each other, helping each other's children grow and be productive members of society. That's what I want. It was such a rich childhood as a result of many different ethnicities living there. And I wholeheartedly respect the Italians who have so much pride in their history. I can't do anything but respect that. You know, it goes for me so much deeper than a name. It's the pride in their heritage. That's key to me. I hope that, you know, we can everyone can come to an agreement on what's best for the community. But most of all, I want us to come together as a community.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here with all of you today and sharing your perspectives. You know, very broadly, I definitely agree. The turnout of the meeting was excellent. I would definitely agree the decorum and the respect in the meeting, I thought overall was very, very high. As Councilwoman Rathbell pointed out, with the exception of like one or two situations, right? 99.5%. It was very respectful, and it was a really good community-based conversation. You know, to kind of pick up on a point, right? The reason why these community conversations are so important, as the Reverend pointed out, right, to get those discussions moving forward in a positive dynamic. There were over 50 people, and we all sat down and we heard that great conversation from the county historian. And as soon as the projector turned on, the name of the presentation was Renaming Columbus Park. That was the title of the presentation, right? So there was already a change in the dynamic that was not positive, was not community oriented, and was not inclusive, right? So that was a big concern. So as you heard all of these different perspectives, I think that moved that in a positive direction, and that's really, really important. From all the conversations that I'm hearing so far, I'm hearing two broad, very important points, right? Which is number one, the name of the park in and of itself and how it's associated with the history of Binghamton and the very diverse community that lives there. And then the second is the appropriate and equitable allocation of city resources in that neighborhood, right? And both of those are equally important, but I think we also need to remind ourselves that those two things are not mutually exclusive, right? Ms. Rice, that story you just shared, that was amazing. It was beautiful. And you know what it also wasn't? A function of the name of the park, right? So, and that's amazing, right? So what I'm hoping is all of this incredible positivity and community orientation that we're moving forward with. You know, I'm hearing unified approach. I'm hearing lift everyone up. I'm hearing community minded. I'm hoping that those will be the tenets as we move forward in both of these categories, but especially, and for full transparency, is what I thought the general discussion was going to be about the name of the park itself. So I hope those tenets are carried with both of those. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share and be a part in this process. And I have some particulars that respectfully I'll just kind of hold on to as the conversation progresses.
Yeah, so, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I had thought too much about, the name of the park until being on council. It's not a park I had spent much time in until running for office, when I went there for Juneteenth celebration. And it quickly, for me as someone on council, became a tricky issue because there's two names, whether we like it or not, there's two names that people use on flyers, on public events, which puts me as someone who would like to support a beautiful park in a great neighborhood in a bit of a pickle. There's a name that if I say that name, it deeply offends our police officers. I know someone on council at one point used one of the names, and immediately I had the police union president reaching out when I was president to say, hey, we heard that use of that name and we're deeply troubled and offended by it. I understand people's feeling that there's a lot to the history of Columbus, and some of it is very uncomfortable for some people, as was expressed at the meeting as well. So basically, as a council person who would like to make sure we're getting investment into that park and into that community, I'm in a situation where I can't even talk about the park by name other than, without causing strife. So I know when people reached out to me saying, why is council wasting time on a discussion about renaming a park? I said, if the name of the park is, and the fact that there already is two names to the park is creating a barrier to getting and galvanizing community resources for that park, that's a problem. That's kind of where my interest lied in thinking about this. And I think that the end result is a resource related result, and making sure we can galvanize people to events at that park, where you don't have to sit there and think, do I reshare this, post because it's calling it one name or the other name, and then, people are going to be upset. And get people to events in the park, right? Get people to community cleanups, get people going over in that neighborhood. So that's kind of what I came into it. It was interesting because I hadn't really thought about it before running for office and being in office. But it did get me to go home and pick up my history book of my synagogue. So my synagogue in Vestal relocated from Exchange Street, and that was also, as was mentioned in some of the discussions, the home of actually many of the seniors in my synagogue, which got me getting discussions going with them as well. So it helped me re-engage with my own community's history. So absolutely, I'm really grateful for that.
The history part was what was, I think, for a lot of people was eye-opening and interesting and compelling. The only thing I had not heard that came to mind, I was disappointed in not having a youth presence. Youth are hard to get out.
Right.
So I'm not saying that's anyone's, and disappointed isn't the right word. I think what was apparent to me is not having a younger engagement in the conversation, because those are, it's the kids and the families who are using the park primarily, with the rec center that's now located in close proximity, obviously, kids and families, and so I think we missed. That's a cohort that I feel like we missed in terms of hearing from
Kids, you said?
just youth and families with young children.
So I heard a few things, and one thing that kind of stuck out, and I want to talk about that before we even go into the naming, like the next step process. I want to make sure that, some people, when they came, they were upset, and that, and you both know, and we all know that in this space, some people will be upset, they're not happy, but I want to make sure that the community is involved in whatever process, whatever step that we take, and that we're really informing people on what is going on. Because I think a lot of people before, like you said, when they came to the meeting and just during the presentation, they thought everything was going to happen right then and there, and they were very upset. So I think before we even come up with a name, or just any process or whatever we do, maybe we can think about some names, or, I mean, some processes of what we're going to do, like, for the community first, like, how will we project it out there first, like, whatever decision we make, like, you know, we know that everyone isn't gonna be happy, but a way that it is, you know, the information that we're giving out before we do anything else.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to kind of touch on something, and this is another one of those predicate type of things that I had mentioned earlier, you know, when you walk in and the name of the presentation is renaming Columbus Park. So, Councilwoman Madaveski, I really appreciate what you just brought up there. Because, right, so just at the expense of, right, we hear these words all of the time: accountability, transparency. Respectfully, but directly, the park doesn't have two names.
Well, we know it doesn't, but people.
No, but respectfully, Madam Chair, that's not the case. There's been members in this body in live meetings.
We know that already.
Yeah.
We know that already.
Right, but
we know that already.
Hold on, but I do want to hear his point out because he's making a really good point. I'm going to follow up on it.
Yeah, because when people say something like Asada Shakur Park, also known as Columbus Park, no, it doesn't have two names. It has one name, right? If someone personally wants to call it, but when you're speaking in that official capacity, right, that's a problem. And that's another lack of transparent way of progressing in a united approach that lifts everyone up and is community minded. Right.
I'm curious what I certainly have some follow-up on what you mentioned.
So I do want to address the naming of the presentation. So in full transparency, Roger Luther used the same presentation that he used at the NAACP meeting. So it really wasn't much, you know, the name really wasn't tweaked. So again, I can see how that can come off as a little insensitive because of the fact that, you know, okay, you already come into this with your mind made up, kind of going back to what you're saying. So again, I think that's a lack of preparation versus some type of intent. So I just wanted to make that clear. But to follow up on Mr. Giovanni's point, is he's absolutely right that yes, community members have taken it upon themselves to present a different name, but as a way to be represented. The issue is that because it only has one name, which I completely agree with, there's only one name for the park, and that's Columbus Park. But then again, how many people's voices are not being represented? And are we capturing those unrepresented voices in decisions that are being made? Because oftentimes, and I'm not saying this is every time, but oftentimes people who call you all and send the emails and make the calls are the people who normally have their voices heard. And so that has a major impact on the decisions that you all make. But have we actually taken time to stop and think about who are the voices that are not being represented in this conversation? So that was the main reason why I was at Columbus, at the rec center at Columbus Park, so we could capture some of those voices that were being underrepresented. And so I think that kind of plays into the heart of why we're here today, is that how do we represent those voices that normally go unheard?
And everyone, yeah, just a little bit of everyone. But like I said, I would like to like if anyone has any ideas on how we can be transparent and those things back to the community on what we're doing or, you know, what we're trying to accomplish. So
may I ask, so if and correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the personal conversations that you were able to have following, did the two of you have a conversation?
Yeah, how'd that go?
Oh, yeah, good.
Landed on that
would you like to share?
Well, yeah, I think what we did, it was the same kind of conversation, was just to kind of assess how the evening went, and you know, a commitment to try to keep an open dialogue, and a commitment to keep it, you know, keep the process going as it was, where everyone would be engaged, everything would be open, like you're saying, and transparent.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, we thought the first process overall went well, where everyone felt heard. Anyone who wanted to speak could speak. And everyone was respected for the most part. So we thought all that was very good for an issue that could be emotional at times. And as you all touched on, you understand, like for, let's say my parents' and grandparents' generation was there, the name is even stronger because of the association with the immigrant experience and all of that we talked about. The fact that it was a good meeting, and I think what I said already, the fact that there wasn't concern that the decision was already made, and when it was emphasized, I think people walked out of there believing that the decision has not been made.
Good.
So
Good.
I thought that was.
Yes, I was worried about that.
So I thought that was good. So I think that's kind of what you touched on.
Yeah. So I definitely go along with those sentiments. The one thing that I do want to raise that I think is also important to this conversation is that we discussed that actually naming the park after an individual, can be more contentious.
Okay.
So taking a look at some other options besides naming after individuals can make it feel that more people are included in the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that certainly came up for me too, and I think in the survey all the options were names of folks as well. And is there a way to rightly and appropriately attribute historical context and honor the culture where individuals are involved, but identify a name? And there were, I would say several, but there was, I want to say Freedom Park, there was Community Park, there were, like, as soon as, to me, the vibe changed when folks started identifying that focus, so representation. And to Councilmember Matavetsky's point, like, we do hear from multiple cohorts throughout the community that have discomfort relative to one name, relative to another name that may not be a technical name, but is a name that exists that community members use for the park, myself included. And so I think honoring that, but to your point, a name is likely not going to get us in that middle ground that folks are. But I do wonder and think that there's likely a way where we can, with a brief conversation about, where the Phelps Mansion might come in, doing an exhibit that honors kind of the history and could they come into play.
But also too, I shared this with you in our conversation. I don't know the gentleman's name, but a gentleman after the meeting was over came up to me and brought a wonderful ideas that, okay, say if we do change the name, we'll find. Yes. Yeah. And I remember he had a blue suit on with the Italian pin. Yeah. So he brought a wonderful idea of how, yes, the name of the park can change, but we can find a way to, within the park, to, to memorialize all of the stalwarts in our community that have always, been a part of the life of the area. So he mentioned a park, I forgot where it was, but there's like a memorial, where's a wall with names etched in it, where, the people who, played a significant role, they were able to be acknowledged. So I find there's definitely more ways that we can go about this and still honor everyone's history, everyone's tradition, things like that, because it is important. Because again, like I said, this area is so diverse. It's hard just to try to just encapsulate it to a smaller group.
I'd be really interested in, and I may just be a history nerd, but the location of the first Trinity name, the location of the synagogue, the plaques memorializing the actual location. But again.
Well, I think Trinity, the first Trinity was, the synagogue was on Exchange Street. It was like an under church there now. And the Annie Zion Church, was that near the park?
So yeah, so where the rec center is now, so that used to be Sherman Street, and so they closed down Sherman Street, expanded Columbus Park to where it is today. But that area right there, matter of fact, St. Mary's actually purchased our old parsonage to help build St. Mary's.
The Italian St.
Yeah, the Italian St. Mary's. Yeah. So yeah.
So like the Reverend was asking about this because he heard this conversation come up that there were, the St. Mary's of the Assumption is on Court Street.
Mhm.
But when the Italian immigrants came over, because they didn't speak English, they had to go down to the basement to hear mass. They have it in Italian and Latin. Then they eventually built their own church, which was called the Church of the Assumption, which is where the rec center is. And then they had raised money to build a new church. And when they got ready to build the new church, which was the Italian St. Mary's, the bishop essentially said the St. Mary's, which was kind of an Irish traditional church on the corner, because that's pretty much empty. Those people have all moved and have gone to other churches. So he basically said, I really can't in good conscience allow another church to be built a block away when this church is empty.
So that's the one right on Court Street.
Right, so basically, it wasn't a popular decision at the time. He basically said to the Italian community, that's basically your church now. And so they basically moved into that church, and so they built a rec center where their church was. So there was two St. Mary's, so sometimes you're St. Mary's Italian, St. Mary's Irish, and that sometimes is confusing people.
So they didn't worship together?
No.
Okay.
Not when they first came over, they did not, and then they basically built their own church, which was called, I think it was Church of Blessed One. Yeah, of the Assumption. And so then when they combined them, they call it St. Mary of the Assumption, because the Italian church was named.
Try to bring both.
I learned something new.
So,
In terms of investment, so when I think of the area right around the church, or excuse me, the park, the rec center has, I would say, received the most city investment in recent years, and probably has the most opportunity for investment and representation and accessibility, particularly to that neighborhood. And I'm looking with you just looking at multi-youth programming. And I'd be curious if there's a way to start our community investment conversations with the rec center as it's already in process, and kind of pair any community, a launch is the word that's coming to mind, but to me, the park is the epicenter, but when we're talking about parking, we're also talking the rec center. Right.
That's right.
We've got the courts that the foundation already there's a basketball tournament at that court, right?
Not from the foundation, but the courts are named after our founder.
Okay.
I don't want to take away from what we came here to talk about. So, we very much had an interest in that building from several years ago. My brother actually put in an offer to purchase, and somehow or another the deal got quashed. Moving forward, we were ready to put in another offer just before the City of Binghamton did, and after talking with the mayor, we agreed to forego our offer to the city purchase the building. It is our hope that we're able to operate out of that building in some sort of capacity. That was kind of why we acquiesced to it. So we're very committed to it. I've already been building programs around that community. I've solidified grants to do movies in the parks this upcoming spring and summer, and just really kind of try to pour into that community as much as possible, in addition to the cleanups and adding additional things. Yeah, we're very interested in, and my apology, because I really thought that was kind of what this meeting was about. I didn't realize until your email yesterday that it was specifically about the renaming of the park.
Well, it's
So,
both.
it's both. No. It's both.
It's all integrated.
It is
Right.
all integrated, yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, we're very much interested in operating out of the same city rec center.
Are there does it make sense to identify, so if we're looking to ensure community engagement, obviously of the neighbors and community members and residents that are there, top of mind for folks, what are there other nonprofit organizations? Certainly Absterity Rice is on that list. Vines is right down there. Are there other nonprofits that are engaged in terms of how the community?
Y uses, they use the park.
Right, that's too close by.
Yes, Y,
Okay.
yes, the Y does. And
NAACP.
Okay. What do, I mean, I know that the Sons of Italy building exists on the corner, but I don't know what the Sons of Italy do as far as engagement. Is that something you'd be able to share?
Engagement in relation to,
The community.
oh, the community over, yeah, a lot of stuff. We do an annual Christmas dinner for, working with, some of the Broome County nonprofits in relation to, people who are differently abled and accessibility. We do with Broome Disability specifically, we do a dinner where like 70 of them come every year, and we do a pasta dinner for them. We give a local scholarship to a City of Binghamton young person. Technically speaking, they've either got to be a high school junior, high school senior, or college freshman, right? And they do an application, the chair of that committee, of which I am, that we do every year. We give on an annual basis money to Danielle House, as well as a bunch of other local nonprofits. So absolutely, very, very much still engaged. And I appreciate the opportunity to share.
It's a nonprofit too. Are you guys a nonprofit or no? Just a club, like the club?
She didn't mean just. A
Yeah, no, I don't know. In your defense, Madam Chair, no, I totally understood what you meant by that. No, absolutely. No, not just, yeah, no, not at all. Because there's like the spirit of it, and then like by IRS regulation, what it technically,
We'll talk off.
No, it's the Cliff Notes version. Yes, we are a nonprofit, but there's also a connection because obviously there's the state Grand Lodge and then the national Grand Lodge, so it kind of ripples into that because obviously we're a part of the state and national organizations, respectively.
So in addition to services, the other major investment is housing. We do see the project not yet moving forward as fully funded, but the YWCA's intergenerational campus, at least the plan is between the Urban League's old building and other spots and sites along Lyle. That'll be YWCA. I think as far as, what we're seeing on Fayette Street, I think council, one of the consents.
You had it. There you go.
Yeah, all right. There you go.
One of the, for council, though demolition has been a priority for the last several years, the concern that I think council has represented would remain aligned on is that as properties are demolished, we want to see at least the same number of units built as are lost, and making them as affordable at the lowest income levels moving up, as opposed to highest income levels moving down. We see our greatest deficits in.
And another, I just want to put, just another thing too, like deconstructing too. So that's something we could talk about at another time, which is kind of like seeing if we could save those things in that area that have historic value and like a lot of that. But that's my other.
No, I
we'll
think
talk about
that's
that.
fair.
Yeah.
So rehabilitation, not only, the city
Put it
has
down.
community development block grant funding, not only unspent, but an annual process so I guess in terms of investment, are we envisioning like an investment plan? Again, I'm a nerd and I nerd out on things
So
like
wait,
that, but
really quick.
Yeah.
So can we go back to the name really quick because I have to skedaddle a little bit. So what are we thinking like with that? Because I know that you said on a part, you said you don't know if the name, like changing it would kind of, you said, what part, did I miss the part where you said something like, you're not sure if renaming it, or like, you said something that I'm missing.
So I think what I was representing is that there seems to be consensus that a name that represents all of the culture and history that was communicated would be less contentious than going with a single individual.
Okay, a person.
From a particular culture
Okay.
that leaves other unrepresented.
Do you
you want to try to land on a decision as far as?
I just,
Next
before I leave,
steps for
I just wanna see, like,
Okay.
before we go into like the Q&A discussion, I just want, before I leave, you guys can continue to talk, but just kind of like what process, like next, like where, like what do we plan to do next in order to get to the name? And then if we want community members to be involved in that process, the next step in order to get. And how does everyone feel about going to the next step of renaming, or what do we need to get to the renaming?
May I, Madam Chair?
Absolutely.
So, respectfully, Madam Chair, so, and I apologize in advance if I misunderstood, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But you just said moving forward with renaming, right? Like, isn't that part of the problem?
Okay, explain what.
Because it's acting on the aside. I mean, unless I'm are we renaming? Is
We're
that?
trying to, well, we're trying to figure out a solution, like, do we want to, like, what is the process?
Oh, okay, no,
So
I,
yes,
and
I wanna
that
see-
that
that's
I-
why we're here.
no,
Yeah.
and I
But
appreciate
we don't
that.
wanna end up and spend 5 years sitting
No.
on committees,
Yes, yes.
deciding whether
Yeah,
or not.
No,
we're
yeah,
doing
no,
it.
yeah.
that is what,
Yeah,
that
that's
is,
what we-
that is what government
Yeah,
does
right.
best.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
anybody's advocating for
No,
that.
we're
What
not.
are we doing next so
Yeah.
that we
Right.
move
Forward,
forward with
yeah.
a
A
decision?
decision, yes, that's what I.
So I mean, I guess if I can just share some finer points from the actual town hall, right? So from the minutes that I took, I had counted that there were only 3 people who explicitly stated the park should be renamed. The survey that was shared publicly, that was conducted, the more inclusive survey that collected, I believe it was about 312 respondents, if memory serves me correct. 54% communicated that the name of the park should stay the same. There was also about another, I think it was 21% that said that they were indifferent to the park. And the survey results of that more inclusive, higher respondent survey were very much reflected, not just quantitatively in the survey results, but qualitatively. Most of the people that spoke at the town hall that night, anybody want to back me up on this, either said A, keep the name the same, or B, I'm indifferent to the name and investment is very important, right? So,
I think I would disagree.
I would too,
Yeah, I
but
think the sentiment and the consensus that I thought we started this meeting with was that there was concern that naming it after one individual representative of a particular historical makeup in the very valid history of that park and the location left others uncomfortable with not feeling represented and their culture and their historical context not represented. So I think the question that I would have, for what you're outlining is, I mean, 54 still leaves, 46. Like, what are we, if the goal is to get to a point where representation feels inclusive,
so
it's
even,
not going to be landing on a single individual.
and I think even with the survey results, I think there should be more context put around it. So yes, it was eventually put out to the larger community, which included people who do not live in Binghamton. And so through different news channels, different organizations promoting the survey, it skewed the data in that the people who actually live and participate and are in the park, in the area on a day in, day out basis, again, goes to the point of being underrepresented because of the people outside of the area weighing their opinion. So yes, if we want to have a survey results based on Broome County, yes, it's going to be, seems like people do not want the name to change. And again, unfortunately, there are certain groups that are smaller than others. So statistically and numerically, they're going to be outvoted 9 times out of 10. But if we look at the people who actually are in the area, organizations that do their work in the area day in, day out, overwhelmingly, majority of them said that the name should be changed.
So I had a quick question because I have to leave. I'm gonna try to speak my sister. Oh, she can't speak. Do you think that we should do another survey? Like, do people feel like the survey was inclusive, like to certain people? Because I heard at the meeting, that's one of the things that stuck out to me. Some people said, well, I didn't get the survey. Or like, should we like set up another survey that we collectively like agree on a survey like that, that's like sent to everyone, that's informal to everyone, like we could set up a way where like we've done this from this date so everyone gets a chance to see the survey. Because I think a lot of the people were saying that they didn't get access to the survey. So I don't know if are people thinking about that?
Yeah, a couple of points. I mean, just to address a couple of quick points. In regards to the sentiment about a neutral name, that did come up at the end without a doubt. But I think that as Gio was saying, a large segment of, I don't know the exact number, a large segment of those who spoke did speak in opposition to changing the name for all the reasons that I don't want to go through all the reasons, obviously right now. But so, I mean, there was some deep passion about what that part means to the Italian community, to the Italian immigrant experience. And others spoke who were, saying just the general immigrant experience who were not Italian. Like Reverend Joseph Hine goes, I'm German, but he goes, I oppose a changing the name of the park because, my ancestors came through this neighborhood and we saw Columbus as part of the, the beacon of the immigrant experience. So with all that said, so I think in regards to the survey, I just don't know, because if you put it out there, let's say, whatever the results are, let's say 70% change it or 70% don't change it. Will that make the decision? I mean, are you putting yourself in a position where the survey becomes definitive?
Right, that's
It's an important gauge, I agree, but it's not the final gauge.
I just want to say,
yes, can I?
No.
As it relates to.
No.
Thank you. So again, I'm going to circle back to our positivity, right? So at the expense of community mindedness, inclusivity, lifting up a unified approach, have we thought about what is going to go on with the name of the community center? Considering that it's because. So I know something that was brought up by several people at the meeting, right? I think it's very evident in both the quantitative data that was reported that we received, as well as the qualitative comments that were provided in a very diverse, very well-attended town hall. If we're coming from an inclusive approach, my question is, why can't we do both? Right? Both as in, why cannot the name of Columbus Park be retained as it has been already illustrated in multiple levels and in multiple manners that both members in the American community of Italian heritage and others even who live in the neighborhood, that there genuinely is a memorable and positive connection to that, but also simultaneously like engage in a naming process of something of as equal important stature that oddly enough is community focused, that is right in the community, that we can all stand together and say, we can simultaneously hold on to our positive past and simultaneously recognize diverse voices. Because if the lens is inclusivity, and we cannot in 2025 do that, that comes across to me and many other community members from different socioeconomic, racial, ethnic, and more broadly demographic backgrounds, that seems to be the dictionary definition of exclusivity. And that, I don't understand how we can't do both, right? Because we're essentially, by caving to the idea that we can't do both, we're basically saying that one is mutually exclusive of the other.
Well, I just want to cut you off really quick. First, I don't think that thought was even thought of yet, the naming for that, but I did want to say like that to me, it's like if we keep Christopher Columbus in, right? And then if we name the rec center Asada Shakur Park, we're not solving anything. So like, it's still kind of one of those things where like, people are still offended either way. So people are gonna be offended by Columbus Park. And people at the rec center will be,
Well, but not to speak for city council, but I can't believe that of all the possible names you could.
I'm not
You would
saying,
never pick that.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I'm using it as an example.
I know, but I
Oh,
think.
yeah, no, I don't know. I definitely don't think that, but I'm just saying like the main reason why, the reason why the name change came up is because I guess it offends certain people.
Right.
So I'm just using it as I'm not saying that that's gonna happen.
No, I understand that. No, because I think that to Gio's point, is I think when the dialogue started, I think, the one, I might have been quoting you if I'm misquoting you.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that talking about renaming the park was to, more accurately reflect the dynamics of the community. And
The history of the
right,
community.
and I think what Gio's saying is that, and when we were saying, even I said it at the meeting, is that, you know what? The African American community, that's a historic neighborhood for them as well as it is for other ethnic groups, racial groups, Italians and others, the Jewish community.
Yeah.
And so definitely, that historic neighborhood, those of us who oppose changing in the park firmly believe, though, we should find a way of recognizing the African American contribution and experience in that neighborhood. Forget the fact that there might be a statue for Martin Luther King over here or something else. We're talking about this neighborhood, 100%, the historic thing.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah, that's.
so,
yeah.
Well, hold on.
As it was pointed out, why don't we just cut to the chase, name the park Unity Park, and have representation of all ethnic, including our Jewish friends, who have history in that community represented in the park equally. And there's unity. We have
And that's
Italians,
true
we have our
inclusion.
Jewish individuals, we have our African, everybody's included, and we take honor to each and every one of them equally. That's, and then no one, then how can anyone feel upset or slighted or not recognized or what, whatever, feelings evoke from this, we can meet, but at the end of the day, let's represent everybody. It's a unity park. We all live in that community. We live together. We represent that and give the upcoming generations something to recognize and strive for and build to, so we can get it back to what it was.
And in that process, have all those contributions, like with the Italians, with the Jewish, with
Exactly.
African Americans in the park. I think, it doesn't have to be that name, but I think that would represent like all of it in together. I didn't mean to use that. I was just using that, sorry, as an analogy of what, like, we don't want to offend, keep it and then offend one. It's just like both things are offensive to people.
Right.
So
That's up there when bringing up that and again, it does feel like it keeps coming back to an individual that is representing a culture or, and that's where we're getting stuck. And I think to your point, I think you're right. If we keep one and then name the other to represent a different, we're still divided. We're
Mhm.
still parsing out rather than.
I believe there's been plans of renovating that whole park. I mean, we could really knock this out the
Exactly.
box. And I
That's the
mean, make it
investment
the center where everyone comes together where they used to. And really have some historical representation of everyone celebrating each other and turn the trajectory of that neighborhood around.
And that's the vision of the launch, would be recognizing the history that is rich within the and Gio, you specifically said American community of Italian community, which term did you just raise in?
Councilwoman, while I appreciate that, you know, people use hyphenated something American.
Okay.
I wasn't raised like that. I was
Okay.
born and raised in New York. I'm an
Recognizing
American of Italian heritage. That's
Okay.
all I say.
Thank you.
In my humble opinion, the hyphenated stuff has to stop, but that's just my humble opinion.
Neither here nor there, but
Yeah.
thank you. And so if we're envisioning, and vision feels like the right word to me, but let me know otherwise, or if we're reimagining, and we're looking at the park, and we identify a launch, whether it coincides with the full opening of the rec center, because that's, I mean, the trajectory is sometime this year, or next year, excuse me, then it's a starting point that where everyone there absolutely honors the history of it as it was Columbus Park, but we're collectively pivoting to project a vision as this unified park that we build on and we prioritize investment. I mean, that's the vision that feels incredibly compelling to me, with the recognition that there are going to be community members who aren't comfortable with specifically the switch of, but I feel like if we're coming together, then it won't feel like a pulling away from, if there are representatives within the Italian American community. I'm sorry,
No, you're fine. I'm the minority as it relates to
like if we have group, like if we have, and this may be an unrealistic stretch, but if we've got older members, like the group of the folks who are represented at the town hall, who are saying to the youth and families that make up the current community, like, we're on board for, like, we appreciate this part honoring our heritage for as long as it has. We're going to stay engaged and we will stay represented and invested, but we're together, we're moving forward like that.
But I was envisioning like, obviously we're trying to talk about like monuments, or flags or something like that, where, I mean, obviously on top of the cultural groups, I would think you definitely want the history of the park and the different names and what it meant to people and, you know, that, like the full, all of that, on top of the groups. And then I'm trying to remember where it was, but there's, you know, these different places where you can have like apps, walking tours. I think we'd want to integrate the actual stories and interview some of those people, like your grape story, right? Like actually have that like hooked up so that like you can walk around the park and there's different things that pull in actual people's stories, including people's stories talking about how passionate they are about Columbus and the immigrant experience. Like I would absolutely, what I'm picturing would include that perspective as a full perspective within the park, even if, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I must speak for Jim. I guess I would say this at this point and jump in, correct me if I'm wrong, seriously, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, obviously, we don't speak for the broader Italian community. I mean, so, all I could say at this
What
point.
are their thoughts on everything?
Well, I mean, I think they're kind of waiting to hear, because we've had some discussion, but the last thing most people have was that meeting, and we're waiting to hear, well, okay, what happens next?
Maybe you guys can invite us to the parade this year, we noticed too.
No, you were invited. Yeah. That's why I was wondering why there was no council members. Oh, you know what happened? No, I'll tell you what happened is Joel Boyd said he contacted both party chairmen to let them know of the parade. And there was,
You just, in the future, just contact.
but you know what,
the clerk's office.
there was no county legislators there either. Go ahead.
Oh, no, she was, we're just.
Oh, I was
saying,
raising my hand, you can always contact the clerk's office.
Oh, yeah, but now, this is exactly what he said at the last parade meeting. I said, from now on, I said, I will take care of contacting all the elected officials of both parties. Individual
emails told
But he
us,
said,
that's
he's been,
important
he sent one to
To
the,
the clerk.
he sent one to the Republican Party chairman and one to the Democratic Party chairman. And I don't know if they passed on, because I said the same thing. There were very few elected officials there this year.
You thought, yeah.
No. No, in fact, it was the opposite. We thought it was great that.
So I think what you were saying is you don't speak for.
Right, so I was
but
gonna say this,
you're
that I was gonna say that if you have if you're looking at a proposal, I mean, we can, you know, we can take it back to the respective groups that we know, we're familiar with, and we can present it and just say, look at, this is what's going, this is the direction city council is thinking going in, and take their temperature and see what they
Yeah,
think.
that'd be great. What were their thoughts when this was brought back? Like, what?
Well, the thoughts were, I mean, they left there, I think, like I said, they left there feeling they had been heard, and they left there a little bit more satisfied that really a decision hadn't been made.
Okay.
Because there was some concern that, you know, this was just pro forma, this, you know, that,
Okay.
you know, we're hearing these people, but we're gonna vote next week. You know?
Okay.
Because people started talking about going to the city council meeting, for the, you know, the public comment
Or
before.
75 members homes.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Which happened.
To your house?
Yeah.
All right.
That happened several times to me over 8 years.
But anyway, so I just said, well, we'll let you
We
know.
prefer public comment, by the way, if people are.
Right.
So I just said, we'll let you know when city council is gonna, you know, consider it, so you know that whatever's gonna come up for a vote, then you can speak at that meeting. So that's basically how it was left with that.
Okay, so if we can message the vision.
Yeah, at this point, we can give them an update on where it's at. They may agree or disagree, but we'll give them an update and then.
And we want to hear it, like, you know, just kind of like.
I mean, my thought in terms of representation of the groups would be that those groups would be in charge of the messaging
Yes.
about their group's history
Right.
and be. in
Right,
charge-
right.
You know,
to cast the
But,
vision.
I mean, so-
right, that you wouldn't want us writing the history. of
Oh, no,
Columbus and
I
the
understand.
community there,
Yeah.
and the Italian perspective on Columbus and what the name meant to you and all that, like, you would, you know, that you'd be in charge of your own.
Sure.
So what would be the appropriate process of communicating that follow-up then?
You can get back to us.
Well, I think first we need to cast the vision. Sorry.
So I wanted to get one thing straightened out for me. So in order to have that public comment, it would have to leave committee and then go back to the general council.
Yeah.
No,
There's not really a formal
there's no,
process.
there's no.
Right, we have to figure it out. That's what we're trying to figure
It's
out.
gonna move through this committee first, and then after that, it'll be voted on when we decide what we're
But
going
this
to do.
committee is the committee that ran the town hall. So we,
Right.
like, just because it's in committee doesn't mean we can't have public engagement.
Yeah, we could still have.
It's really up to the
It's up, yeah, and we can, if we can do another town hall if we want, like, if there's whatever process we wanna do for the next steps, it's on us, like, if we all agree to like what we're going to do. So, yeah, it's just kind of what we're focusing right now is on the vision, and then we can go.
If it was presented at a more general meeting, for instance, that doesn't mean that it's leaving committee, it's still housed within the MPA committee, it's just being considered at an open committee.
Identify potentially a date and time for public comment
Yeah.
for that particular discussion.
Okay.
While also leaving open the opportunity for any, what public comment happens before every business meeting regardless.
On
So
Wednesday.
folks, I mean, as much as we invite individuals to come or to share public comment, the engagement is typically somewhat weak. So I think we
And
leave that
typically the same people.
open.
We really want to hear new voices.
But we identify a date and time for public comment.
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah, and the topic too, like, if it's like a hot topic, then we get
And
a lot of.
putting it on an agenda for discussion does not preclude any following motions from being made. Like, it could go back to a committee, it could be voted on at the next meeting, talked about again, that doesn't box anything out.
Okay.
But I think,
So-
I mean, if I'm understanding that, that's to your inquiry, Gio, it would be this committee has conversation to send to
That's
the
right.
members that are here today.
Yeah.
At which point you would take it back to those who feel that your close connection or community connection with for feedback.
Mhm.
And then you just need to identify
A date for public
a
comment.
date for public comment.
Mhm.
But also it
A
would be
plan.
an option for anyone to send, they can always email
Yeah.
members. There's whether individuals email or you collectively email on behalf of groups. I mean, however, that's always an option, but we would identify a date.
Yeah, public comment. Yeah, that's fine. I think the next step before we even get to public comment is kind of like the vision and the plan and exactly what we're going to do. So that way we can bring that, everyone can bring their
Get
information back.
feedback on something more specific.
Specific.
Because
And
right
then
now
after
it's
that,
like,
yeah,
well, it could be
everything's
any name or no
Yeah,
name.
it's kind of vague right now. I guess that's the next step. And then after that, then once we get that, everyone can go back to their communities and then we'll go from there and then public comment.
Although I will say, I mean, we have had quite a bit of discussion about Unity Park.
Right.
I mean, that,
I can make a suggestion. I think you kind of hit it away. I think the approach would be decide what you think the plan, what your draft plan is, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
The draft plan.
Mhm.
Right.
What the draft, like that word?
the draft plan.
What the draft plan is, and then you take it back to, the members of your church, parish, and others, the NAACP, and other project community people, and we would take it back to that. And I think at that point, just to keep it at that level first, to get the feedback from the initial participants,
First.
that gives you an opportunity maybe to refine it before you go fully public.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
that's
that's what I
kind of
said.
what you were saying.
Yeah.
And then if you could please maybe email that to us, so, because respectfully, I don't, as the immediate past president of the lodge, I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody.
And if anything, there's nothing for us to all do a Zoom, like, we could do, like, set up a Zoom. We could set up a Zoom, like, you don't have to be here.
Right.
If need be, we can go back and do a Zoom, and then after that, prepare for the final step. So I think that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
so I think.
So just to confirm, the committee of city council is going to propose a draft plan, I'll steal that phrase, and then you'll email it to POCs of different community stakeholders. So we'll wait until we receive that before we bring it to our,
Right.
okay, just
And-
wanted to make sure I got that.
Yeah,
And also, like, since you're representing your communities, like, what would you envision in the park too? Like, what are to represent your community? So like, if you could come up with something.
yeah, and I think again, it's like making sausage. I think once you get the thing, you can start to go, you know what I mean? You start crunching it and see where it goes. You know what I mean?
Mayor,
So-
you need a different metaphor.
That wasn't right over there.
Trying to make it work for my brain, but I just don't have any context.
It's like a
Talk.
process.
Is it
But-
okay that you
but-
don't wanna see what goes in?
Right,
You don't want to know what it is.
Where's the gavel? Where's the gavel?
But I don't wanna, crush the question. Yeah, because it has to
Not
be
before
some
we
type of,
get
well, no. But even this, because I think it is my opinion that inevitably it will come to public comment.
Yeah.
At some point, we will.
Right.
Yeah,
get
that's the goal.
So, exactly, so.
And modifications can still be made.
Right, no, but again, I say getting something like on the calendar, getting something set in stone so that it kind of encourages people to move, because what we don't want to happen is for us to, have a repeat of this type of meeting. Okay, we got the information, okay, we talk to people, because I'll just talk about the NAACP. Hold on 1 second. I'll say about the NAACP. They're like, okay, yes, we talked about this. Yes, we got to this place. All right, we kind of know what needs to happen. We're waiting to see exactly what city council wants to do. So I just want to get into a situation where we're constantly punting, kicking the ball.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my thought is in terms of creating a draft plan vision for the park, I would want to, for example, talk to the mayor in terms of the budget and the timeline for the reopening and the other things, and see how this is gonna fit in and try and put together a plan that includes all those other pieces that we were talking about. Getting a sense of investment versus like communities having to maybe fundraise some towards some of the stuff, or like, is it gonna be, like, how is, understanding a little bit about how all the pieces are gonna come together, so that it's not just a discussion about a name, but a discussion about the broader vision, the broader inclusive vision instead of just a name.
To me, the components of the plan would come, so draft plan where we're casting the vision, sending it to this group to then cast to their community members and the connected folks. Public comment eventually to make a decision that that is the approach we're going to take, and then I think
looking
you're
for the
right.
money
that's
and the
involved.
timeline.
Right.
Because the timeline and the money
Components
is all
come
the
after we finalize.
city hall wide.
The approach.
Right.
I agree.
Does the, and this is more for the two of you, does it feel like a reasonable turnaround for us to do that draft plan? Do we want to look at before the end of the year, or do we want to give ourselves like early January?
I know that you're driving towards rental register
Yeah.
code before January. So that is a big amount of work to work on.
Yeah.
And I don't know what other major.
Why don't we, would it be okay if we have an internal conversation
Oh,
around?
yeah,
it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's-
I could get the rules book ready.
Yeah, we have stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I think
Like follow up.
I just think that it's more concrete when we have a date.
Yeah, but
So-
we can't get a date yet, and so we.
Right, and we're gonna be sitting here and getting our books out.
Yeah, I
Right.
think
Well, yeah,
so.
yeah, I'm not saying about
I
today,
think
but,
we can get you a date
Yeah.
in the next
Yeah.
week or two.
Yeah, we
right,
can,
that's,
yeah.
that's.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that's all. So,
Yeah, not today though.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no.
As long as not today, yeah, I can't get it today.
I want it tomorrow.
Okay, I can't get it.
Well, the thing is, you want to build in time
I'll
to,
stay on it.
take back and reflect.
Yeah,
on
right, yeah,
this, too.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because like with the holidays, it'll be tough for us to pull,
Yeah.
get people to come.
Absolutely.
And just to add on to that, right, so keep in mind many of the organizations, right, like for example, the NAACP, do you have monthly meetings, I'm assuming?
Well, bi-weekly technically.
Okay, yeah, so we only have monthly meetings, right, so at the expense of
When do
like.
you have those, do you know?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
When's your monthly meeting?
What's a December meeting?
Oh, Thursday of every month
Third Thursday, okay.
at 7.
So yeah, we could, I don't wanna push Christmas, but we could probably get something for maybe the beginning of the year. I don't wanna say right now.
Yeah,
but something- Yeah,
After New
Yeah,
Year's
yeah,
and
that-
stuff,
yeah,
yeah,
that would
yeah,
be
no,
good.
that's
and
fine,
then, yeah,
that's fine.
that's fine, yeah, we get something to you before your meeting, and when's I think our
The January.
executive.
It's at the end of the month.
Okay.
All right, then you better stay on as MPA committee chair.
Okay.
New Year's.
You said the end of the. Okay. There was just one Monday, right?
Yeah.
So we'll just wait. We're not gonna say anything, we don't want to
Right.
Yeah,
start
that's
talking
fine.
about till we have something to present.
That's it.
And you
We're
said
start
the
talking about it in
third
advance.
Thursday?
Yes,
So-
third Thursday.
Like I
of
said,
every
we've been talking about it on
7.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. It's public.
Which is good, but let them,
It was loud.
but they're leaving with the conclusion we said, we're looking for initial input and then broader input.
And then while we're coming up with one last thing, while we're coming up with the draft, is there anything that you wanna like include in your, like, anything that you envision during like the draft, like during the.
No, I think honestly, I would wait to see what you have and then maybe
Go from
comment on
there?
that.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I think you have some, some fundamental ideas and
Yeah.
then we'll see what the final product is.
Do you have
And,
anything?
well, I would like to submit this to you,
Sure.
Chair. This is documentation from the Congressional Black Caucus talking about the need or the benefits for the city to invest.
You want to give it to me? I'll make
Thanks a
copies.
lot. Thank you. Thank you so much.
The benefits of cities investing in public spaces.
Okay.
So it has it broken down with facts.
Thank you. All right, are we all set?
Okay.
Yes.
All right,
Thank you for your time.
I had a motion to, I'll make a motion
On motion to adjourn.
Beautiful. Rebecca, did I hear a second from you? Oh, wow. That's incredible. Look at that, adjourned. Have a wonderful day.
My wife is. Might help out. You know, I do, honestly, I clean up. It's just more tedious and it's out.
I cook and clean.
I know.
Yeah, I can do, yeah, I can.
But my husband will probably.
I should realize it.
And I get to watch TV while I pick the chicken, the turkey.
The wife and mother would cook, and then clean.
It's a lot. You don't even get to enjoy it. Like, I